Thank you all for attending the 2009 Economic Summit on Green Technology. Our mandate today is to identify new opportunity in soft infrastructure to support green technology through creating a new market. Who are Karen Chesney and Associates? Many of you know me as a person. Not many of you know what we do for our living. So let's discuss that. Karen Chesney and Associates has been in existence for about 20 years. It's a consulting firm that up until now has done operations design and implementation, marketing and strategic planning, and market research, design, and analysis for corporations from mom and pop shops straight through to international corporate conglomerates. Recently, we've identified opportunities with regards to systemic transition and energy strategy design, incorporating green technology into various markets, including the housing industry, but not limited to the housing industry. Today's objective is to identify the social contract in various elements of infrastructure. And what we mean by that is every technology has a set of socially acceptable implications that is attached to it. In order for an effective transition from an old technology to a new technology, we must first identify the social contract the old technology meets so that we can identify opportunities for change in the new technology. To identify clearly where the addiction to the status quo is no longer serving us in a healthy way is the first step in identifying how we can transition to healthier and, in this case, greener technologies to meet the same needs, and then to brainstorm as a unified front on all of the possible systemic solutions that we may be able to work towards using current resources that exist in various industries and levels of government to be able to integrate a harmonized system as opposed to a system that is proprietary and non-functional. The problem today, the problem as we sit today is a problem of systemic addiction to the status quo. Now, when we say that, most people look at me and they say, well, how do you know that? And how we know this is for two things. The first is we have built our entire business system on two primary thoughts. The first is that the same operations design would meet our business's needs from beginning to end. And the second thing that is a bit of a problem is that we now have variant energies that we need to incorporate in that status quo to be able to move forward. Because our systems are not designed for the influx of that technology, it causes a problem with regards to accessibility. It causes problems with regards to implementation of the technology, and it causes problems with regards to accountability surrounding those issues. I included this slide because I wanted you all to understand why I call it addiction. The definition of addiction in the dictionary is the condition of being habitually or compulsively occupied with or involved in something that doesn't function effectively. That's, in many cases, our energy system as it stands today. The definition of compulsion is a force that makes somebody do something compelling, an act of compelling, or the state of being compelled to perform the same duty when we know it's unsuccessful. There is no one in denial about the fact that we have to change how we do business. There's no one in denial of the fact that this technology needs to be incorporated. Yet so often when I'm having discussions with senior executives when we walk into boardrooms, we often hear three big questions. The very first question that enters my mind is, who's going to pay for this? How are we going to get our money back on this? And where are we going to make the success to be able to make this happen? These are very, very valuable questions and very functional questions, and they need to be answered on a consistent basis with a plan that works. Unfortunately, because the technologies and the infrastructure is not built the way it needs to be built, it is the biggest problem that we have with regards to the implementation. The new financial products do need to be identified, and the opportunities for those financial products need to be acted on in order for us to move forward. We're in the process right now of trying to identify those. Today, our job is to sit down and figure out in every one of the 15 different areas that we're looking at today, what is the absolute mandate that we have to attain? We're not interested in how we get there. We're just interested in what do we actually have to move forward? What is the absolute minimum of what we need to be able to obtain to claim success? The symptoms of systemic addiction are really very simple. And when I bring this to a boardroom, most of the guys laugh at me. But the reality is that 90% of their systems suffer from it. The first symptom of systemic addiction is that it's unavailable or unable to effectively and efficiently meet the requirements it was designed to meet 10, 20, 30, 50 years ago. The second symptom is that it continues to be used despite the fact that it's ineffective or dangerous to the company's well-being or growth, and that has been identified through consultancies or through operations managers. The third symptom is that it requires more and more band-aid solutions to make the system relevant and functional. And actually, these days, it's not just about systemic addiction from an operations standpoint, it's also systemic addiction with regards to resources that are available for education. In many, many ways, the support systems that are currently being used are not educated the way they need to be educated to move the technology forward either. Symptom number 4 is when the company continues to engage in behavior despite the fact that they know that they're aware of its negative impact on their bottom line. This lack of objectivity with regards to management and operations design is what usually costs an enormous amount of money to any corporate environment. Now, how did we get here? Every single time I ask this question in a boardroom, I get the exact same answer. I have absolutely no idea. And the truth is, you don't. The truth is that I could sit for 2 years in your operations and I can show you exactly how you got where you were. But it's not one decision, it's 150. And it's not one bad decision, it's 150 bad decisions that seem to work at the time to get you where you're going. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, you are wasting an enormous amount of money on the Band-Aid solutions rather than dealing with the issues at hand. Now, oddly enough, it's the exact same response that rehab counselors get when they're talking to their addicts for the first time about their addiction. And the truth is that it's never easy to put an answer on that question in either case, because the problem is not what you see. The problem is what underlies what you see. So unless you can actually spend the time to define your operations and to analyze them with an eye that is not based on any given agenda, it's going to be very difficult for any internal management to be as objective as is needed to be able to move forward. And that's where Karen Chesney and Associates comes into play. We go in and we take a look at what's there and what is fat. We obtain your status quo. We recognize what you want to get, where you want to get to, and we start looking at how independent those operations are and how deeply embedded with poor solutions they are to get where they need to go. No one can answer this question effectively in the beginning, but we always have an answer towards the end of the project. Now, how can you tell if your operations